little update on the 8-inch versus 7-inch touchscreen for the Kia Stinger. This one here is what would come in your base model GT base. Just a basic 7-inch. Looks a hell of a lot better without the bezel. But this is the board that comes in that version. And then up here, this is the 8-inch model, or the edgeless design, if you will. As you can see, it has a different board. This one has a 60-pin connector where everything runs through that up to the screen. This one has a 50-pin, and a 10-pin, I believe. I'm assuming one of these, this one's probably LCD driver. This one's a secondary for like backlight and such, and then that's power for the digitizer. So, in hooking these up, if you take this screen straight out, as you can see, there's a white connector and a black 4-pin connector. Same on this one. White connector, black 4-pin connector. If you take this one out and then just swap the plug straight over, you get video, the screen turns on, it's clear and everything, but you have no touch functionality. So I got to looking into it and looked at the schematics, and it turns out this black connector, which is the LVDS signal, has a different order on the 7-inch versus the 8-inch screen. So they're the same 4 wires in, so the same 4 labeled wires, but they're in a different order. So looking on the schematic here, this screen here that you're seeing is the stock 7-inch screen. However, this is the stock 8-inch screen. So if you look at the connectors, there's the white connector, which is this big 12, and there's the black 4-pin. Down here, same thing. So on the 7-inch smaller screen, you're looking at interrupt, low, enable, and high. But on this one, they're in a different order. So we've got enable, low, high, and interrupt. So they have the same pins. However, when you swap them around so that the 7 then reflects the 8-inch order, you still don't get, you get no touch functionality. From what I can tell, I reverse engineered the 7-inch base model. Blue and green are your data to turn it on. If you take blue and green and hook just blue and green up, the screen will come on, still crystal clear. However, if you unhook one blue or one green, the screen will not work. It has to have both. Secondary to that, once you have blue and green hooked up, if you hook up just brown, so I'm saying these wires are a bit arbitrary, but one wire is brown, one's orange, one's blue, one's green. But just kind of roll with me here. 1 second. Here's your, just make it a little easier. Sorry that's not brown, that's the closest I had, but if you hook up just blue and green, low and enable, the screen will come on the stock 7-inch. If you unhook either of these, it will shut off. However, if you hook up both, you're good to go. And then no touch. Hook up just the brown, that enables touch. As soon as you put that on there, the touchscreen works. However, it's extremely slow. As soon as you hook up this high wire, it becomes extremely fast. If you hook up just the high wire, touch does not work. If you hook up just the interpret wire, the brown wire, or interrupt, I'm sorry. If you hook up just the brown wire, touch works, but it's extremely slow. So from what I can see, these 2 wires drive the screen to turn on. This one drives touchscreen, and this is like the high-speed data response or something to that extent. However, we get a little complicated when we get into this 8-inch screen. Now, as I just mentioned, interrupt, low, high, enable. Interrupt, low, high, enable. They have the same 4 wires in, just in a different order. If you switch the order, you don't get any touchscreen. I don't get quite why, but you don't get any touchscreen. I tried all different orders, nothing. I got nothing. I can make the screen turn on in multiple different ways, but I cannot I cannot get any touch functionality out of it. Now, if we come over here to the actual audio unit, there's a picture missing here, but this is the 7-inch stock one. So we'll come down here. This is the higher end one, GT1, GT2, probably 2.0 premium as well. You can see here's the LVDS connector, just like we have on our other page. There's LVDS. So we'll look at the 7-inch one first. As you can see, LVDS, top left corner, says low, interrupt, high, enable. Okay, that's fine. Those are the same wires that we have into the 7-inch screen. However, if you go to the 8-inch version, now we have a monitor LVDS low, monitor on off, and a LVDS high, and 3, which is brown, is blank. So I tried to hook it up that way too, and just assumed that the brown wire might be considered on off. I got nothing. Screen will turn on in certain forms, but again, there's no touch screen whatsoever. Down here on the 7-inch, I traced and tracked all of these wires. There's a chip on here, if I can find the name. It is a Max something, Max 9278 maybe. Let's see, Max 9278A. That seems to be the common denominator here. This one has a Max 9278A, so does this one. This one is actually on the front, it's right there. This one, on the other hand, is on the back. Both of them have the exact same chipset in terms of that Max chip. The green and blue wire both go to the Max on both displays. They go to the same pins. They go to pin 10 and 11 on both displays on the exact same one. If you look it up, the pinout, pin 10 and pin 11 is inverting and non-inverting, so positive and negative signal. So that leads me to believe those two are for sure how they turn the screen on. The only issue is we get into that mysterious brown and orange wire again. The brown and orange wire on here goes through some driver separation and then comes into this. And then up here, on the other hand, the brown and orange wire goes over here, goes through some vias, goes to the back of the board, and then comes through pins somewhere between 10 and 13 on this 60-pin strip. And I say 10 and 13 because, well, quite frankly, I couldn't figure out exactly what pin it was. They're so freaking small. But this one has a built-in LED driver board underneath this board assembly. You can see that black, that's actually tape. It's under there, and then it has its own little connector that goes off to the screen. I tried tracking it. The chips on there are extremely small. They're tiny little SMDs, so I couldn't really read the names, and even if you did, it was only 4 numbers, and it didn't tell me nothing. So, really, I'm kind of at a loss as to what could be enabling the touchscreen. I don't know if it's got a different language. The first viable option is looking at buying a navigation unit. If I buy a navigation unit, then, well, at least I'd have navigation, assuming there's no hiccups in between. But more so, this video is to kind of update you guys on what's going on and possibly see if anybody with some technical knowledge has a little bit of thought on what might be happening. I mean, according to this service manual, like I said, you've got monitor interrupt low, enable high. This is 7-inch, but if you look at the 8-inch, enable low, interrupt high. They have the same wires labeled as coming in. The problem is when you get to the actual audio unit, which is the big silver thing just below your vents, when you get to the actual audio unit, which is the brain, you have on the 7-inch all of those same settings that we just saw. So low, interrupt, high, enable. But on the navigation one, which is the higher end one, the one with maps, supposedly it does not use that same thing. It uses LVDS low, LVDS high, on and off. So the secondary thought to that might be that maybe this mysterious white connector is what they're using to do the rest of the communication if they're just bypassing that LVDS cable. However, it gets a little conflicting here too, because according to this is our connector. You can see the little ears, connector D. But if you look at connector D, none of it makes sense. You've got ground, ground hazard switch, passenger seatbelt, telltale, PAB, probably passenger airbag off, ignition 1, passenger airbag on, and hazard lamp. Clearly none of those make shit for sense as to why they would be up in the screen itself, because there's no notifications up there. That's all built into the cluster, or the audio unit there in front of you. So if we look at the other one, so this is again the missing image one, so this is the 7-inch. You've got ground hazard, passenger, PAB off, ignition 1, PAB on, rear left seatbelt reminder, rear center seatbelt reminder, rear right seatbelt reminder, and hazard switch output, which leads me to believe this one might be the higher end version. That or this one might not care about seatbelts. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't see the seatbelt reminder in any of these other ones here. So apparently, if you have the cheaper version, it cares more about whether or not your passengers have their seats in. So like I said, I'm a bit lost. It doesn't necessarily look like, and assuming this is accurate, of course, it doesn't look like that connector will get me anything. So if I buy the navigation unit, it doesn't look like it would actually get me anything, because according to this, these are the only wires that are on the navigation unit, which, again, make zero sense whatsoever, because if you dabble over here, they call it connector A. As you can see, it looks the exact same. Now, it is possible that some of those other wires in there turn into connector A. I did not fish behind it. It's not easy to remove the audio system at all. But as you can see, we've got 3 grounds, designated LCD ground, because we got a lot of noise inductance here. Monitor enable, display mute, and LCD battery. This is the 7-inch. So LCD enable, or monitor enable I should say, doesn't really seem to be coming from, at least not the display side of it. So maybe that's just turning on the backlight and the LCD is actually on, I don't know. But that seems to be coming more from the LVDS. If we look at the 8-inch version here, you can see it's got basically the same thing, but it just calls it something different. Ground, monitor ground instead of LCD ground. Monitor board enable, I think before it might have been the same. Yeah, monitor board enable. Front display mute, again, display mute, and LCD battery, except this one calls this one monitor power. So it's a bit confusing as to why it doesn't work from a simple standpoint. It looks like you should just have to rearrange the order of this, but I got nothing. So if anybody's got some thoughts on the touchscreen side of it, I was not able to find a chip on here that was common on these two that actually drove the digitizer section of the display. So that's where we stand. If you buy the 8-inch edgeless screen and you install it, it'll look cool. It'll turn on, but don't expect anything to be touchable. The cable here, this black cable 4-pin that seems to be the thing that needs to be modded, even though I haven't gotten it to work yet, is about 1 foot long and costs $94. So make sure you're knowledgeable of that before you go and cut it to try to play with the wires. But I've tried just about every combo possible and I haven't got nothing out of it. So if anybody's got any thoughts, feel free to let me know.